you for joining in. Hopefully, internet connection will be okay. So let's start. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatayate Shatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gautase Namaha. Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gau Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Nana Shastra Vichane Kanipano Sahadharma Samsapakam Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Amanyo Sharanyakaro Radha Krishna Padaravindra Bhajana Nandana Mattalikayo Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuchugo Shri Jiva Gopalakao Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuchugo Shri Jiva Gopalakao. Hi Krishna. So thank you all for joining in. Once upon a time in the history of mankind, we started Nectar of Instruction. With the powerful force of time, it just started but could never move forward. But we also made a determined vow. कुछ भी हो जाए, आज तो session करके रहेंगे. Last two sessions unfortunately just couldn't happen. आज का भी session सत्र cancel होने ही वाला था. So my throat doesn't have much mileage. I don't know for how long it will last, but I'll try my best to at least run until the first verse. So at least our syllabus starts. Otherwise, Nectar of Instruction will become Once Upon a Time book only. Not this one. Just 1 second. All right, let's recite the verse and then we'll do our just a quick FYI for these sessions. I will not have any presentation because I don't have my laptop to make a presentation. We'll just straightforward discuss from the book. I might make some points because even I don't have a digital display also to write. So I'll tell you, what is that? When you can start writing something so that concept will become more clear. Am I well audible to everyone? Right? If need to be, we can increase the volume. Well, we can increase the volume to increase the sound. All right. Mantra number 1, Nectar of Instruction or Upadeśāmṛta. Vacho vegam manasa krodha vegam jivva vegam udarupashta vegam etan vegan yo vichheta dhiraha sarvam apimam prithvim sashishyat. So we started our discussion last time on this. We did do word to word. So I'll just directly begin with the translation here. I would need as a reading partner somebody would like to read the translation. Please go ahead. The translation of mantra 1.
A
The
sober
Kamalika.
person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals is qualified to make disciples all over the world.
All right. So I was quoting Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura last time, just to do a quick recap of, we almost had a 1 hour session, I believe, last time. Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So in this commentary of Śrīla Prabhupada, he quotes a commentary by Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that is Anuvritti commentary. And Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura have written a book by the name of Bhakti Alok. He has in fact composed bhajans for almost each of the verses. And last time we recited or we chanted one prayer or bhajan. Anyone remembers what was that? आज तो हम उस स्थिति में भी नहीं कि कुछ गा सकें, but last time we did that. Ohe Vaishnava Thakur Doyara Sagara Idasa Karuna Kori Diya Pada Chaya Shodoya Maya Tomara Charana Dhori. Very, very beautiful song, bhajan. And we discussed briefly, if I'm correct, the second paragraph. What is that? Like the second paragraph of this particular song. We discussed that how it relates to the set of verses here. Anyways, so doing a quick recap of the certain sections of the purport that we read, just to describe how Prabhupada is building up the purport, and then we'll a little bit talk about the verse. And then after that, describing this concept, then we look into the commentary of Prabhupada when he begins to speak about each of the elements. So purport starts with Prabhupada, very interestingly, quotes a conversation between Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadev Goswami, which is found in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And Parikshit Maharaj is a question by what one can overcome sinful habits, the sinful past, or the sinful reactions. And in that context, Sukdev Goswami mentions few things, and he talks about atonement, etc. And Parikshit Maharaj does not buy that option. He says, no, what's the point of atonement? If a person again performs sin, maybe you get freed from the sinful reactions, but what about the tendency? Like that, the conversation or discussion happens in the first chapter of the 6th canto. And finally, being poked by Parikshit Maharaj again and again, Sukdev Goswami finally says, yes, by all kinds of atonements can relieve you from the sinful reactions, but unfortunately, the person will again perform the sin. Why? Kutaha bijaha. Bij, or kut, sinful inclination, sinful desire, like that kutam bijam concept comes in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. That bij to perform the sinful action is still there. So any kind of atonement that a person may perform, it may save him from the reactions, but the desire to perform the sin will not go away. So how to uproot that? That is how Prabhupada builds up. And he brings up to a point, as Sukdev Goswami says, only through serving Krishna, only through reestablishing one's relationship with the Supreme Personality Godhead through the means of bhakti yoga. And Prabhupada gives different analogies and examples to explain how a person is forced. Again, he commits a mistake, like a thief, elephant bath. And in a religious context, example of a Christian going to a Sunday, every Sunday confessing, and rest of the week again performs the same blunder. So what is the real atonement? Real atonement is to take to Krishna consciousness. So in other words, NOI, the first verse, before anything else can be discussed, Prabhupada is talking about the need of Krishna consciousness. That should be clear. This has no direct relationship with the verse, but Prabhupada is establishing the need for Krishna consciousness. Now, when the need is clear, if in case I want to get freed or rid of sinful reactions and of the sinful habits, I need to take to Krishna consciousness. All right, I take to Krishna consciousness. The question arises, how do I progress in Krishna consciousness? How do you progress? For that, you study Upadeśāmṛta. How do you progress? You follow the instructions of Srila Rupa Gosvami given in Upadeśāmṛta. So that first initial paragraphs are the foundation, establishing the need for accepting the teachings of Upadeśāmṛta in one's life so that we can progress. Is that all clear? That's how it begins. And then Prabhupada begins discussion about Vacho Vigam Masakvatare. Before we get into Prabhupada's purpose, let's talk about it. So here, unfortunately, I cannot write, neither I could make a PPT. So why don't we ask all of you to have a pen and paper? So start writing as I say. So if you don't write, you will not get the concept, and I don't have a way to show you. So if you look at the text one, it talks about 6 elements. The first line talks about Vachaha, Manasaha, and Krodha. So you can make 2 by 2 columns, or let's say 1 by 2 probably. So in the first column, you write Vachaha, Manasaha, and Krodha. Now in the second column, please write Jivvaha, Udar, Upashta, Vegam. All right. At least it gives you some picture, some understanding of it, what's going on here. So when you look at these three elements, which are 6 elements in two columns, do you see anything over there? Does anything comes into your mind, or what can you infer from it? If you can infer anything, please unmute yourself and say the answer.
Probably the first 3 are like popular and next 3 are gross.
Yes, correct. You got it. So if you see the first 3 elements, Vachaha, Aj to speak, Manasa, mind, and Krodh, anger, these all are subtle elements. And the next, Jiva, eat, or the urge to eat palatable items, Udara, the need to eat, and Upashta, the sexual interaction, or those kind of a thing, those are gross. So subtle and gross, fine. This is kind of, you can mark it like that. Now let's go to, I'm going to a little bit spend time on this from Bhagavad Gita, because this is what Krishna speaks a lot in Bhagavad Gita about it. So if you go to Bhagavad Gita in 3rd chapter, Hare Krishna. Why fellows are keeping the door open? Can you close the door when you come in? Gives us the sound from outside. Okay, what was I saying? The 3rd chapter, if you look at, 36 onwards, Athakena priyuktayam papam charati purusha. By what one is impelled to commit sinful activity? Kamesha, Krodesha, Rajaguna, Samadva. All of you might remember that. In that series of verses, if you go, okay, Madan Medam, you can share the screen, right? If in case, when you pull out the verse, then you share the screen, huh? So it'll be less disturbance. So 3rd chapter, verse number 40. We are trying to see a little technically, and while trying to see technically, we'll try to analyze, and then we'll try to come to some solution here, what we're talking about. And then we'll take a look at Prabhupada puppets, how much it relates to it, okay? We're doing some discovery here, like that. So in 3rd chapter, 40th verse of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Indriyani manobuddhir asyadhishnanamucchate. No, that is actually asyadhishtana. That is a sitting place, not that. The 41st verse. 41st verse says, Tasmat tvam indriyani adam. Tasmat, therefore, greater than the gross body are the senses. Niyama, no, that also not. This says, first you regulate the senses. The verse I'll say, Tasmat tvam indriyani ado niyama bharata sabha papamanam prajahiyenam jnana vijnana nashanam. So here Krishna says, among everything, there are 3 places where the lust is sitting. The sin, is nothing but, being performed because of lust. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 3rd chapter. Discussion happens. What's that enemy? Enemy is lust. So it's sitting at 3 places: the senses, mind, and intelligence. Krishna says, first of all, you should try to control this enemy at the level of senses. Okay, why at the level of senses? That answer is given in the 3rd chapter, verse number 42, where hierarchy is described by Krishna. Indriyani parani aho. Senses are superior than the gross body. Indriyebhya param manaha. Superior than the senses is the mind. Manastasu parabuddhir. Intelligence is superior to the mind. Yo buddhi parastastu sa. And greater than the intelligence is the soul. Soul, intelligence, mind, senses, and then comes the gross body. So that's a discussion about this thing. So now, if you go back to the table that you made, looking at the gross items, Jivvaha, Udara, Upashta. According to Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says it is far easier to control the gross urges than the subtle urges. Is that okay? So in gross urges, there are three urges which Srila Rupa Goswami mentions: Jivva, Udara, Upashta. That's the sequence Rupa Goswami says, right? I'm just repeating that. Now my question to all of you is, how do you do that? How do you control the urge of Jivva, Udara, Upashta? Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura writes, they are in three straight lines: Jivva, belly, and genitals. And it can be controlled, can be easily controlled. So answer for this is, Srila Rupa Goswami gives an answer. Atha Shri Krishna Namadi na bhavet grayam indrihe sevan mukhehi jivado swayameva spuratiyaja. You want to make a progress in Krishna consciousness? Sevan mukhehi jivado. The secret is tongue. Tongue has got two functions: vibrate and to eat. Right now here we're talking about eating function. In other words, if you want to control your urges, we need to stick only to Krishna Prasad. That's the point. This unnecessarily becomes such a big or complicated subject matter. It isn't a complicated subject matter. So, Jivva Udarupashta. Jivva means the urge to eat palatable items, that is Jivva. Udara means the urge to eat more. That is, something is delicious. You want to eat more and more. That is Udara, which puts undue pressure on the genitals, and then mind and senses get agitated. That Upashta. So if you want to control all this, before control, we have to purify. Please understand that. Control and purification has to happen simultaneously. So purification and how it happens, how this gets purified, how the body gets, or the senses, gross senses, right? The body gets purified. The body, what is body? Body is nothing but heap of food. What is a mind? Nothing but heap of thoughts. The body, we're talking about gross senses, right? Jiva Udara Pashta, which means you have to purify the body. So we have to purify the body means by only eating Krishna Prasadam. Now let's go back again to Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter itself, verse number 13. Hare Krishna, can we showcase these verses? At least here I'm going to read some part of it. What does the 13th verse of 3rd chapter says? It defines sin in relation to food. Yagna Shishtashinha Shanto Muchyante Savakil Vishaha Bunjate Te Tu Agham Papa Ye Pachanti Atma Karana. अपने मन की संतुष्टि के लिए आत्म कारणात्, अपनी इच्छा के लिए व्यक्ति चाहे वेजिटेरियन खाना ही क्यों ना खाए, that person will still incur sin. Muchyante sarva kil vishe, Muchyante sarva kil vishe. Muchyante means freed, sarva kil vishe, from all sins. Yagna shishta shino shanto. If one honors food which has been offered in yagya and honors it, eats it, then he gets freed from all sins. However, bunjate te to papa. Bunjate means khana. However, one only eats sins. Ye pachanti atma karanat, if it has been taken for one's satisfaction, once if it has not been honored, offered to the Lord and honored that. If you'll take a look at the end of the puppet here, in the last 6th or 7th line, please go at the bottom. You will see the line, others who prepare food for self. Are we able to see that? Yeah, please somebody read out the paragraph.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, can I read?
Yes, please.
Others who prepare food for self or sense gratification are not only thieves, but also the eaters of all kind of sins. How can a person be happy if he is both a thief and sinful? It is not possible. Therefore, in order for people to become happy in all respects, they must be taught to perform the easy process of Sankirtan Yagna in full Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, there there can be no peace or happiness in the world.
So in other words, if we are eating even a hopefully internet connection will be okay. Sorry. Hare Krishna. I don't know from where the second sound came. Okay. What was I saying about to say? Yeah. So we are talking about, again, please take a look at the table that you would have drawn. The first is Vacha, Manasa, Krodha, and the second column says Jiva, Udara, Pashta. And as I believe Mother Rati Manjari or somebody was saying, that the first column represents subtle senses and second column represents gross senses. I'm just doing a revision of what we discussed so far. And going back to Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, lust is sitting at three places: senses, mind, intelligence. Hey Arjuna, it is easier to control the lust at the level of sense than at the mind and intelligence, which means we can prevent easily, not easily, comparatively easily, at the gross level than the subtle level. Therefore, we consider the second line first, Jiva Udaru Pashta. And then I said, see, success in Krishna Consciousness, progress in Krishna Consciousness depends on Jiva. I quoted Srila Rupa Gosvami, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Sevan Mukhehi Jivadau. Jiva has to function, to chant, to vibrate, and to eat. And then we said, let's focus on the parameter of eating. Eating. Now, we need to purify and then control and purify our body. So eating what kind of food? Vegetarian food? Well, then we quoted third chapter, 13th verse of Bhagavad Gita. If you're eating Atma Karanat for your self-satisfaction, you're eating sin. So if you're incurring more sin, then to control, it becomes more difficult. Just remember, the same example, Bhakti Tirth Swami Maharaj, Zadana Swami Maharaj, they all give the example of good dog and the bad dog. If the bad dog is becoming powerful, it becomes more difficult to control him. So if we are eating vegetarian diet, according to Bhagavad Gita, it's still a sin because it is not offered in yajna, which means if we don't create the system around, the practice around us, that I'll only stick to prasadam and prasadam and prasadam, it ain't going to be possible for us to control our senses. If we fail to control the gross, what to speak about the subtle senses? Hare Krishna. Who got unmuted here? Okay. I'll just disable the sound. So if in case you need to speak something, you can raise your hand. So what was I saying right now? So prasadam. So first thing is, if you want to control the senses, the very first thing we need to add to our life, which all of us are doing, but need to stick very strictly, is eating prasadam. Now, eating prasadam, the science of prasadam doesn't restrict there. Only eating prasadam. There is a lot to the subject matter. Now, eating prasadam means not that whatever we call is prasadam. When you're honoring prasadam, there are a few things we need to consider. Anyone would like to reflect? Because honoring prasadam is the first step for us, which gives us the strength to control our senses. The first choice is about controlling senses, right? And prasadam is the means of it. We quoted Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu to establish this point. I will come to Prabhupada purport in a short while. Any thought, does anyone know any parameters about eating prasadam? Prasadam. Somebody say this is prasadam. Is prasadam? What prasadam is actually? Any thoughts on it? You got to raise your hand to unmute because I have disabled that function. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Okay, Madan Manisha. Yeah, Madan Manisha, go ahead. Unmute yourself. Oh, wait. I need to do something maybe. Yeah, unmute now. Yes. Boliye.
Hare Krishna, very Dhanavad. Prabhuji, when we offer prasadam, we must offer prayer and thanks to Krishna and
Okay.
to
Yeah, that is valid. yeah, that is done. What else? Good.
And prasadam means when we are honoring, and we should also think of that we are eating prasadam. So we should be
correct. These are more subtle
thankful.
things. What are the gross things?
Krishna also that, and we must pray for ourselves also that this prasad should result, that we should advance in Krishna consciousness.
All right. So for that, we have a standard prayer. Sharira Vidya Jodandriya Tahir. All right, that is all done. Okay, little more gross parameters. Any other gross parameters to fix it? Anyone else? Mother Kamalika, your hand is up. Go ahead. 1 second. Can our admins are host today or not? Just 1 second. Hey, Tejas, can you take this call? Important call. उनसे बोलो मैं आ रहा हूँ 1 second. Oops, sorry. Co-host. Pick it. I'm just coming 1 second. Mother Medavni, Harinam Prabhu, I'm making you co-host so you can handle this. Same with Nitai Pran Prabhu. You can just quickly take inputs from devotees. I'm here only. I just have to attend to this quick call.
Kamalika Mataji, you can go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Yes, regarding the gross, the prasadam must be offered by a devotee only.
All right.
Prabhu,
Next. Admins, kindly manage this conversation quickly.
Shashwat Prabhu, I have unmute him. Yes, Prabhu, if you want to share your thoughts.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So, Prabhu, the bhoga which we offer to Lord Krishna should be the ingredients should be which has been recommended by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, like patram, puspam, phalam, fresh milk, fruits and vegetables, and etc. And also, it should be cooked within 3 hours. It should be fresh enough. These 2 things, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Rakesh Prabhu. Oh, sorry. I think. Yes, Prabhu. Please.
So you need to ensure like most of the things should be juicy in format, and at the same time, one who is taking the prasadam, we should ensure like should not consume more. Like 1/3 has to be consumed, and we need to ensure like 2/3 of the belly is empty. That is what has been mentioned while honoring prasadam as well. Probably you are on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, you're again Yuktahara principle. I heard somebody was making a point. It has to be cooked by devotees. Very valid point. It has to be cooked by devotees. That's the first thing. Therefore, we don't just go and honor prasadam everywhere. We kind of. So there are a few things. It's a subject matter in detail, but all of you should consider. We should consider some of the points. Now here in the purport, we'll take a look at it. Prabhupada will focus a point on, not only who cooks it, but also on the quality of prasadam, which means we should not eat very palatable or rich items because that provides a lot of energy. And when you have more energy, redundant energy in the body, which goes into the senses and it agitates the senses. So one has to be careful of those things, at least in the beginning stages in particular, because right now we are struggling to control. So having a simple diet in the beginning years of Krishna consciousness helps a lot. And therefore we have this Chaturmas, we had a Purushottam Mas, we have gonna have Kartik Mas. Different occasions are there where we kind of voluntary, we train ourselves, to have a simple diet. We have Ekadashi twice in a month. But what to do? Ekadashi has become a twice in a month feast day. You don't eat regular items so much on the day of other days. On Janmash, on Ekadashi, sometimes you 8 at 10 items. Aloo ka dosa and pata nahi kya banta hai. All of you would have eaten Ekadashi feast. So that was the point about this prasadam. All right, let's move forward. So that's about the gross. So if in case we honor Krishna prasadam only, as Krishna is mentioning in Bhagavad Gita, that will purify us, and then udar upasya, everything will fall in place. And the quality, it should not be too much really rich with oils and the ghee and too sweet, etc. Because then again it agitates the mind, and udar upasya will get agitated. Let's go to the first line, vacha vegam manasa krodha, the subtle. Now, how do you fix the subtle, which is more difficult? So again, going back to the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the last section of Bhagavad Gita. So I want you to please line up this vacha manasa krodha. If you take a look at it, krodha is nothing but the feature of mind only. So let's say vacha and manasa. So if you remember your Bhagavad Gita, the third chapter, the senses, the mind, and intelligence. Intelligence is greater than mind, mind is greater than senses. Intelligence is purified by what? What purifies intelligence? Transcendental knowledge. Sorry. 1 second. Hare Krishna. What was I saying? The intelligence gets purified by transcendental knowledge. We studied in Bhagavad Gita. Mind gets purified by
Mantra meditation.
Chanting.
Yeah.
Mind gets purified by chanting. And senses gets purified by physical engagement.
Service.
All right. So vacha manasaha krodha. This vacha, the urge to speak, is nothing but again the function of mind. When you have more disturbed and agitated mind, the person wants to speak more and more, right? So let's focus on how can we control the mind. How can we control the mind? Any thoughts on it? How can we control the mind? Okay, we can speak about vacha also. Well, let's speak of the mind, then we'll speak about vacha. Any idea how can we control the mind? Chanting purifies, no doubt about it. How can we control? So, okay, two things. There are two things that we should do to control. This is what our Acharya explained on this regard. And we'll see search for it in the Prabhupada purpose. First thing that really helps both vachaha and manasa. Let's talk about vacha for a second. Vacha means urge to speak. My limited experience of life says, Ishavasam sarvam yat kincha jagatayam jagat tena taktena bunjita magrada kasya svidhanam. This was talks about quota. Each one of us, for each of our senses, has a particular quota. You might have seen people, some people are satisfied and content even if they speak 2 sentences. Some people will not become content unless they're spoken 2 hours. They have to blabber. They have different quotas, right? Which means we all have our quota of how much our senses needs to be engaged. Now, the vacha means the urge to speak. And the best way to dovetail or tailor this urge to speak, all of you at least should do it for sure. Your Bhakti Shastra, you're about to graduate with Bhakti Shastra degree, is to have compulsory preaching engagement. Now, when you speak about Krishna, now, I can say, Prabhuji, you can say, why Prabhuji you say compulsory preaching engagement? Why don't we just preach about Krishna every day? Well, you will not do it. It won't gonna happen. But if you have a fixed schedule and a preaching engagement, then you're forced to speak about it. Now, very interesting relationship between, I hope you put the 3 things serially, vachaha, manasaha, and intelligence. Very interestingly with vacha is what you speak. Before you speak, you have to contemplate, right? Mind has to contemplate. When you contemplate, then only you can speak, isn't it? So if you want to speak about Krishna, you have to contemplate about the subject. So when you preach, your voice, your urge to speak gets purified, your mind gets purified. And before you can contemplate, you can only contemplate when you have some data, which means you have to cultivate transcendental knowledge, your intelligence gets purified. So if we take on to the preaching engagement, our intelligence gets purified, our mind gets purified, our vacha gets purified. Therefore, it is very, very important. Therefore, Prabhupada so much emphasized. I mean, Prabhupada didn't go into technical analysis details. We are getting into it just to help you break down these points, just to help you relate how important it is. Somebody may say, Prabhu, but I am not a good preacher. I don't have the confidence. Well, when did Prabhupada ask for that? Prabhupada said, take my book, go on the street, do book distribution. What confidence do you need for that? Whatever you read, 1 verse, 2 verse, just go and tell people about it. You don't have to give a lecture for 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours. Anyone and everyone can do it. And this is the secret. This is the way we can do it. So how do you control vacha? Is we have urge to speak. If we can speak about Krishna, all of us, the need will be, the quota will be taken care of. The quota. Manasa, mind automatically gets purified. So 2 things about mind. First is preaching. That's how. What is the second thing that can help control the mind? What is the second? So Mithul Prabhu, let's hear from you. What is the possible option? How can you control the mind? All right, no problem. You can relax. I kind of disturbed your relaxed position. So the second way you can do it is by taking responsibility on behalf of Guru and
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Hello, Prabhu, can you hear me?
Yes, Mithul Prabhu, very well.
Prabhu, I'm sorry, I just took a nap, so I was not practically.
That's okay, that's
present there.
okay. I saw you. Therefore, I kind of thought, as my duty as a teacher, we are
Yes.
authorized to disturb students. So I thought of
Yes.
disturbing your nap.
I can read it, Prabhu. You just tell me, I'll read it.
Yes, yes. When I come to reading, we'll tell you.
Yeah.
Okay. So mind is purified. Our mind is controlled by 2 things. One is preaching. I describe the whole process. And second is responsibility. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Cheto darpanamajanam bhavamahadavag nirvapanam shayakirva chandrika vitaranam vidya vadhu jivanam ananda buddhivardhanam. Okay, ananda buddhivardhanam pratipada punamrit swadanam sarvatma sanapanam param vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. What is this param vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam? What does it mean? This is the very first verse of Shishtastakam. Param vijyate, all glories, Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. What is a Sankirtanam? Not Kirtan, in fact, Sankirtanam. So, what is Kirtan? Kirtan is to speak, Kirtan is to glorify the Lord, isn't it? Now, one way to say Kirtan glorifies the Lord is to chant the holy names of the Lord. All right. Another meaning of Kirtan is to speak about the Lord. That's also glorious. So Sankirtan not only means coming together and having Kirtan. Sankirtan refers to preaching program. Because you cannot have preaching program alone, na? You'll have people giving class. So Param Vijyate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam is having a preaching program. Go and preach. Have some engagement. That is what Param Vijyate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. And when we do that, then our Kirtan, which means Japa, becomes strong. As our Japa becomes strong, to that degree, our Sankirtan becomes strong. And this is the process. Otherwise, have you ever wondered how is it possible? Kali Yuga said to you, the most degraded age. But in this age, we are able to follow 4 regulative principles. Oh, Hare Krishna wala gets some special power or what? What is the power? This is the power. Because Prabhupada's system is such, everyone knowingly, unknowingly is pushed into preaching. Knowingly, unknowingly. Now I'm giving you reasons today why you should get involved into it. So 2 things for the mind, to control the mind. Vacha vega, manasa krodha vega. The urge or, demands of mind, you want to control it. Take responsibility on behalf of Guru and Krishna. You will not have time to think about anything else. And second, preach. Before you can speak about Krishna, you have to contemplate, which means contemplate. Dhyayato vishyan pumsa. What you contemplate is what you get attached to. And to contemplate, you need to know about the subject. So then you will cultivate transcendental knowledge, which means intelligence gets purified. And that's how we can defeat lust. And that is what the first verse talks about. Vacho vegam, manasa krodha vegam, jivva vegam, udar, upashta vegan. Now, krodha, vacha, manasa, krodha. Krodha is something, it's a process of gradual, considering all the different categories of audience. I would say it's a gradual process of purification, which largely depends on our strength of cultivating goodness. Because krodha is largely based on our conditionings. We are born with certain guna and karma, and we have that conditioning of one anger arises. Bhakti Siddhanta Ṭhākura writes, we'll read about it. One anger arises because of frustration when your demands are not fulfilled. That is not out of conditioning. That can be handled. Anger is somebody has a nature of being angry just for no reason. They're short-tempered, largely because of lower modes of consciousness. For them, because they're conditioned, it takes a time for them. It will all depends on their strength to cultivate mode of goodness. Anger in itself is not bad. That's the point we'll be discussing Papat again. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got angry. Narad Muni got angry like this. So when sages, the great personality, got it. In fact, Krishna was present on the battlefield of Kurukshetra when a battle is going on, which means you're not smiling. You're fighting, isn't it? So, which means Lord was angry. Lord was angry at Karna, was angry at Duryodhana, so many. So when devotees get angry, the anger only brings good in others. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got angry at Jagai Madai. It transformed them into Jagdananda, Madhavananda. Lord Shri Krishna was present on the battlefield. Each of the individual who died, they got liberation. So the anger manifested by devotee. Narad Muni became angry and Nalakavara Manigriva. They got the blessing of Lord Shri Krishna. They were so blessed that they got to see the childhood pastimes. Can you imagine what was a curse? This Nalakavara Manigriva was born as a tree in the courtyard of Nanda Baba. ये वो वृक्ष तो बहुत पहले से था. नंद बाबा ने अपना घर उस वृक्ष के बाजू में बांधा. Such a way that those vriksha were in the courtyard of Nanda Baba. Those trees saw the birth of Krishna, saw all the childhood pastime. This is what Damodar Leela. Krishna was somewhere around 3 years old. तो मतलब शुरू के 3 साल तो पूरी लीला देखी है. कितने अद्भुत उनका सौभाग्य था. So that's the nature of anger. All right. So this is what I just wanted to help you understand. किसी का कोई इस पे प्रश्न है, अगर कोई है तो we can take it. Now we'll read Prabhupada. Is that making sense? Because I didn't have any presentation, neither I could draw anything. I hope. So we are quickly reiterating it. What this verse is. Gross and subtle. Jivva udar upashya, the gross senses. Vacha manas sakrodha is a subtle. Gross is easier than subtle. And to control the gross, the very first thing is Jivva. Jivva is controlled, not Jivva. Jivva udar upashya can be controlled and purified through prasadam. Prasadam. Yukta ahara. Yukta ahara means regulated diet. We should only have prasadam. Prasadam means which is cooked by devotees. We should only eat prasadam. We should regulated amount. We should not overeat. That kind of thing. We'll read it in the next verse. Atyahara prayashas, like that. So that's about the gross sense. If you do so, things are managed. What jiva means? To urge to eat palatable items. Udara means urge to eat more. Upashta, genitals, like that. So that was about the gross. Subtle, vacha manasa krodha. I quoted Ishavasim shloka, which means quota. Everything has quota. Every senses have their quota. Some people like to speak less. Some people are happy if they speak more. So we all have quota. If we can utilize that quota, urge to speak in the service of the Lord by speaking about Krishna. Therefore, I spoke about preaching program. To establish the need of preaching program, I quoted Shashtashtakam for shloka. Chetodarpanam marjanam. Param Vijjate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. What is Shri Krishna Sankirtanam? Kirtan means to glorify the Lord. And what could be the best way to glorify the Lord than to speak about the Lord? And therefore, Bhagavad Gita concludes with that. Arjuna, the one who speaks this message of Bhagavad Gita to others, is the most dear to me. So what is Kirtan? Which is pleases Krishna. What pleases Krishna the most? When you speak about Bhagavad Gita. The Param Vijjate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. That is preaching. So if you speak about the Lord or speak about Krishna, then your quota of doing unnecessary talk would go away, would reduce. Not only that, your mind will have to contemplate, mind gets purified. Your intelligence will have to cultivate knowledge, intelligence gets purified. To establish that, I quoted 3rd chapter, last section, like that. And then mind, one is preaching, and second is responsibility. All of you who are graduating, this is the last book for one of the batches. So I believe most of you might have some program. But we should strive. We should strive. We should have at least one fixed program, somebody who we are training in Krishna consciousness. First, second, what if somebody asks you, what is your responsibility towards the temple? What is one thing that you're doing, maybe towards the temple, maybe towards your guru, some service? Of course, we're chanting 16 hours, we're falling 4 eggs, we're reading Prabhupada books, etc., etc. Have you taken upon any responsibility on your shoulder? I mean, of course, not everyone can have that because you, most of you, in fact, every one of you are householder. You may have certain needs at this point of time. You may not be able to accommodate, but if you can, then what responsibility am I carrying? That's the way. So this is the way we can control Vacha and Manasa. And Krodha is gradual process. Ultimately depends on goodness. If you're on goodness, then it will not. Whereas devotees getting angry, it is only meant for the good for the subject on whom he has got angry. That was a subject matter all in all. Is that clear? If that is clear, even not clear, what can I do? Let's continue reading the purport now. All right. So I complete my quota of speaking today. So now I will hear from all of you. We'll read from the purport. And all the urges of the tongue. This is, I don't know how to figure it out. You flip through your book, you'll find in my book, this book, प्रभुपाद का जो फोटो आता है उससे पहले वाले पेज पे उसका second paragraph है, वहां पर है. All right, Mithul Prabhu, if you have found, please read. As for the urges of the tongue.
From here, Prabhu, I can start the first step in human civilization.
No, Prabhu, वो सब हो चुका है. आगे चलो. Next, what is the next paragraph?
As stated above.
Next.
As for the urges.
Okay, till the time you figure out, Mother Rati Manjari, have you figured it out? Or Mother Tarani Gopika? Figure it out, please go ahead. Unmute. Mother Rati Manjari.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat.
Yes.
As for the urges of the tongue, we all experience that the tongue wants to eat palatable dishes. Generally, we should not allow the tongue to eat according to its choice, but should control the tongue by supplying prasada. The devotee's attitude is that he will eat only when Krishna gives him prasada. That is the way to control the urge of the tongue. One should take prasada at scheduled times and should not eat in restaurants or sweetmeat shops simply to satisfy the whims of the tongue or belly.
Oh, wait a second. My mistake. Oh, I flipped the page forward. Actually, you have to go behind. You have to read from Vacha. Prabhupada. First one must control his speaking power.
Yes,
Where we went too ahead.
okay.
We can read one paragraph. You can read one paragraph, then Mithul Prabhu can read another paragraph. We can go like that.
Yes, first, one must control his speaking power. Every one of us has the power of speech. As soon as we get an opportunity to begin to speak, if we do not speak about Krishna consciousness, we speak about all sorts of nonsense. A toad in a field speaks by croaking, and similarly, everyone who has a tongue wants to speak, even if all he has to say is nonsense. The croaking of the toad, however, simply invites the snake. Please come here and eat me. Nevertheless, although it is inviting death, the toad goes on croaking. The talking of materialistic men and impersonalist Mayavadi philosophers may be compared to the croaking of frogs. They are always speaking nonsense and thus inviting death to catch them. Controlling speech, however, does not mean self-imposed silence, the external process of mourner, as Mayavadi philosophers think. Silence may appear helpful for some time, but ultimately it proves a failure. The meaning of controlled speech conveyed by Srila Rupa Gosvami advocates the positive process of Krishna Katha, engaging the speaking process and glorifying the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. The tongue can thus glorify the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord. The preacher of Krishna Katha is always beyond the clutches of death. This is the significance of controlling the urge to speak. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
So this is, yeah. So this is what we spoke about.
Yes.
Urge to speak is speak about Krishna. I hope you're able to see the connection. Prabhupada makes a beautiful point. The last point, the preacher of Krishna Katha is always beyond the clutches of death. This is the significance of controlling the urge to speak. All right, next, Mithul Prabhu, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji. The restlessness or fickleness of the mind, in the bracket manovega, is controlled when one can fix his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. The Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 22.31 says, Krishna Surya Samaha Maya Haya Andhakara Yahanam Krishna Tahanam Nahi Mayara Adhikara. Krishna
Jahan
is just
Krishna, tahan nahi mayara adhikar.
Krishna is just like the sun and Maya is just like darkness. If the sun is present, there is no question of darkness. Similarly, if Krishna is present in the mind, there is no possibility of the minds being agitated by Maya's influence. The yogic process of negating all material thoughts will not help. To try to create a vacuum in the mind is artificial. Artificial. The vacuum will not remain. However, if one always thinks of Krishna and how to serve Krishna best, one's mind will naturally be controlled. Similarly, anger can be controlled. We cannot stop anger altogether. But if we simply become angry with those who blaspheme the Lord or the devotees of the Lord, we control our anger in Krishna consciousness. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became angry with the miscreant brothers Jagai and Madai who blasphemed and struck Nityanand Prabhu. In his Sistastaka, Lord Chaitanya wrote, Trunadapi sunichena tarorapi sahishunaha. One should be humble than the grass and more tolerant than the tree. One may then ask why the Lord exhibited his anger. The point is that one should be ready to tolerate all insults to one's own self, but when Krishna or his pure devotee is blasphemed, a genuine devotee becomes angry and acts like fire against the offenders. Krodha or anger cannot be stopped, but it can be applied rightly. It was in anger that Hanuman set fire to Lanka, but he is worshipped as the greatest devotee of Lord Ramachandra. This means that he utilizes his anger in the right way. Arjuna serves as another example. He was not willing to fight, but Krishna incited his anger. You must fight. To fight without anger is not possible. Anger is controlled, however, when utilized in the service of the Lord. Service of the Lord.
Anjana Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
So,
As
I
for
mean, we're just moving forward now. But if in case anyone wants to pause and ask a question, you can. I've given you a way of looking at this puppet in a way. आपको चर्चा करनी है तो we can pause and discuss. All right, we can go for the next paragraph.
Hare Krishna. As for the urges of the tongue, we all experience that the tongue wants to eat palatable dishes. Generally, we should not allow the tongue to eat according to its choice, but should control the tongue by supplying prasada. The devotee's attitude is that he will eat only when Krishna gives him prasada. That is the way to control the urge of the tongue. One should take prasada at scheduled times and should not eat in restaurants or sweetmeat shops simply to satisfy the whims of the tongue or belly. If we stick to the principle of taking only prasada, the urges of the belly and tongue can be controlled. In a similar manner, the urges of the genitals, the sex
Hare
impulse
Krishna.
can be controlled.
Mataji, Taruni Gopika Mataji can read the next paragraph. Prabhuji said each one paragraph.
Okay.
In a similar manner, the urges of the genitals, the sex impulse, can be controlled when not used unnecessarily. The genitals should be used to beget a Krishna conscious child, otherwise, they should not be used. The Krishna consciousness movement encourages marriage not for the satisfaction of the genitals, but for the begetting of Krishna conscious children. As soon as the children are a little grown up, they are sent to our Gurukul school, where they are trained to become fully Krishna conscious devotees. Many such Krishna conscious children are required, and one who is capable of bringing forth Krishna conscious offspring is allowed to utilize his genitals. Should I continue?
All right, go ahead.
Chintamani Sakhi Mataji.
Yes.
Hare Krishna. When one is fully practiced In the methods of Krishna conscious control, he can become qualified to be a bona fide spiritual master. In his Anuvritti explanation of Upadeśāmṛta, Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākura writes that our material identification creates three kinds of urges: the urge to speak, the urge or demands of the mind, and the demands of the body. When a living entity falls victim to these three types of urges, his life becomes inauspicious. One who practices resisting these demands or urges is called tapasvi, or one who practices austerities. By such tapasya, one can overcome victimization by the material energy, the external potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Should I continue or someone else?
So,
Rakesh Prabhu. Yeah.
this is now Srila Prabhupada is quoting the Anuvritti commentary of Bhaktisiddhanta Ṭhākura. It's the same subject matter, but a little bit presented differently here. So here, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Ṭhākura says, one who identifies himself with these urges, and he says there are three urges largely, which this verse talks about. The urge to speak. Second is the urge of mind, where he clubs the manaha and krodha together. And the third urge is of the demands of the body. Demands of the body is jivvaha, udar, upashta, the gross. That's how we analyzed it like this. He says one who identifies with these three urges largely is in a bodily concept of life. And then he says, by such tapasya, one can overcome victimization by the material energy, the external potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So point Bhaktisiddhanta Ṭhākura is making, what is tapasya? Tapasya means to control, or I would say not control, largely to tolerate these urges. And how do we do so? We follow 4 regulative principles. No meat eating, that refers to your jivvaha. No intoxication, no gambling, no illicit relationship. They all get covered here. Would anyone remember a reference from Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, by such tapasya one can overcome victimization by the material energy, the external potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Anywhere in Bhagavad Gita Krishna speaks about this? Any thoughts? Anyone remembers? All right, let me give you a hint. Chapter number 2. Now, let's take a look at chapter number 2. 72 verses. First 10 verses are Shishastyam Sadhivan Tvam Prapannam. Wahan to aayega nahi. 11 to 30th is about you're not the body but soul. Wahan par bhi nahi aayega.
It is Neha become an Ashasti.
No. Not like that. Not that one. And then 31 to 38 is about Karma Kanda. Wahan pe bhi nahi aayega. The 39 onwards to 72nd verse is about your Buddhi Yoga. So it comes there. And Buddhi Yoga section also, if you pay attention, the initial, there is a section, set of verses, which talks about control of mind and senses.
Bhogeshwarya Prasaktana.
No, it begins from Dhyayato Vishyan Pumsa. 61st verse, that section begins. 61st, 62, 63, and comes the 64th verse. Ragadvesha vimuktestu vishayan indriyascharan atma vashiye vidhyatma prasadam adhigachati. Second chapter, verse number 64, translation Krishna says, but a person free from all attachment and aversion, able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom, if you're able to take a look at Bhagavad Gita, can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. And what do you mean by mercy of the Lord? Devi Eshu Ganamai Mama Maya Duratyaya. That's what this point is saying, right? So by such tapasya, one can overcome the victimization by the material energy. So purpose of tapasya is to be able to tolerate the urges of the body and senses. That's the point here. Okay? All right, let's continue. When we refer to the urge to speak, Bhaktisiddhanta Ṭhākura speaks further. Who is sitting next?
Hare Krishna.
When we refer to the urge to speak, we refer to useless talking, such as that of the impersonal Mayavadi philosophers or of persons engaged in futile activities, technically called karma kanda, or of materialistic people who simply want to enjoy life without restriction. All such talks of or literatures are practical exhibitions of the urge to speak. Many people are talking nonsensically and writing volumes of useless books.
No,
And all of this is
nonsensically. You sounded like
nonsensical.
non-essentially, which is more or less the same meaning. Non-essential and nonsensical. Good way. Good. Go ahead.
Nonsensically and writing volumes of useless books. And all of this is the result of urge to speak. Contract this tendency, we have to divert our talking to the subject of Krishna. This is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, verse 1.5.10.
So please pay attention to the line. To counteract this tendency, the urge to speak, what Bhaktisiddhanta is saying? We have to divert our talking to the subject of Krishna. This is what I explained the concept in the beginning. How do you do Vachavegam? Start preaching. Isn't it? So if in case you are able to pay attention, you will be able to see what we said is what, I just summarized this the same concept which our Acharya is saying. And then Nad Muni says, Nayat Vachachitrapadam Hare Yasho Jagat Pavitram Praganita Karhichit Tadvaya Samti Tamushanti Manasa Nayatrahamsa Nirmand Shikshaya. Padiya Prabhu.
Sri Prabhu, please unmute yourself.
Those do not describe the glory of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly person to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crowds. Since the all perfect person are inhabitant of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there.
Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin pratishlokam api Namaninantasya shunkitani yat shanvanti gayanti grananti sadhavaha. Who is reading? Ojasvi Prabhu, continue.
Okay. On the other hand, that literature which is full of description of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, form, pastime, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord is a different creation, full of transcendental birds directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of these birds, misdirected civilizations. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are truly honest.
Read the next paragraph also. Conclusion. Sorry, you got on mute? Yeah. Or just read it now.
The conclusion is that only when we talk about a devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead can refrain from useless nonsensical talk. We should always endeavor to use our speaking power solely for the purpose of realizing Krishna consciousness.
Hare Krishna. So that's the reason we should preach. And for that, the two shlokas are quoted from the first canto about the glories of Krishna Katha. Tadvag visargo janatag viplavo visarga means the words which glorify the Lord has a potency, janatag viplavo, to set fire in the so-called inauspicious society today, or not to the society, but in terms of in the inauspicious activity, which can uproot, destroy the sinful tendencies like that. All right. So that was about Vachaha, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wrote. Now, Prabhupada talks about mind as per Anuvritti commentary. Go ahead. Venuvadan Prabhu.
Yeah. As per the agitations of the fettling mind, they are divided into two divisions. The first is called Avirodha Prati, or unrestricted attachments, and the other is called Virodha Yukta Krodha, anger arising from frustration. Adherence to the philosophy of Mayavadis, belief in the fruitive results of karma Vadis, and belief in plans based on materialistic desires are called avirodha priti. Jnanis, karmis, and materialistic plan makers generally attract the attention of conditioned souls. But when the materialists cannot fulfill their plans and when their devices are frustrated, they become angry. Frustration of material desires produces anger. Shall I continue, Prabhu?
All right, continue.
Thank you. Similarly, the demands of the body can be divided into three categories: the demands of the tongue, the belly, and the genitals.
All right, just one second.
Sorry,
1 second. So one paragraph was regarding the mind. Virodha priti. Priti means attachment. Avirodh, without restriction. Virod yukta, which is born of frustration. Krodha. So avirodha priti, unrestricted attachment. Prabhupada says adherence to the philosophy of Mayavadis, Karmavadis, and belief in plans based on materialistic desires are called avirodha priti. This agitates the mind. Jnanis, karmis, materialistic plan makers, they're always disturbed. And then virodha yukta krodha, the failure, the frustration arising, the frustration arising because of failure, that leads to another krodha. This all agitates the mind. So frustration of material desire produces anger, like that. Now, the second item has been done. The third item is the demands of the body. So that is what is being read by Vinodan. Please read now.
Similarly, the demands of the body can be divided into three categories: the demands of tongue, the belly, and the genitals. One may observe that these three senses are physically situated in a straight line. As far as the body is concerned, that the bodily demands begin with the tongue. If one can restrain the demands of the tongue by limiting its activities to the eating of prasada, the urges of the belly and genitals can automatically be controlled. In this connection, Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura says, Sarira vijjājal janendriya taheka jive faile vishya sagare taramajya jiyati lobo maya sudarmati take jita katina samsare krishna varodayamai कोरी भारे जीवा भाई जीवा जाय सो प्रसाद अन्ना दिलो भाई से अन्नामृत पावो श्री अन्नामृत खाओ राधा कृष्ण गुण गावो प्रेमे दाके श्री चैतन्य निथाय. Oh Lord, this material
prasadam will be served after this prayer. Huh? Be happy with recitation only. Continue.
Yeah. Oh Lord, this material body is a lump of ignorance, and the senses are a network of paths leading to death. Somehow or other, we have fallen into the ocean of material sense enjoyment. And all of the senses, the tongue is the most voracious and uncontrollable. It is very difficult to conquer the tongue in this world. But you, dear Krishna, are very kind to us. You have sent this nice prasada to help us conquer the tongue. Therefore, let us take this prasada to our full satisfaction and glorify your lordships, Sri Radha and Krishna, and in love call for the help of Lord Chaitanya and Prabhu Nityananda. There are 6 kinds of rasas, tastes. Shall I continue, Prabhu?
Yeah, now we can have another devotee who reads out. So I was quickly putting some questions on the chat. So I just 1 second. Where is my chat window? Okay. So what was discussed so far was demands of the body. I believe Madan Manisha, she was making a point, right? We should be in the prayerful mood while honoring prasadam. That is what is kind of mentioned here. And the prayer is being described. The meaning of the prayer is given. The prayer is composed with that intention is to remind us, the prasadam is not for our enjoyment. There is two things Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura writes. Very interesting. Maybe I can raise a point right now in this relationship. 1 second. I hope this will not go away. In the next verse, if you take a look at it, the very first word of the next verse is Ati Ahara. So Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura says, those who are sincere in their practice, and those not sincere, those who are very eager to attain Krishna Prema, they will just not accept the superficial meaning of the word Atihara. Why? Because Ahara means food, Atihara means overeating. And he says, why would Srila Rupa Gosvami, which is such a valuable book, only has 11 set of instructions, repeat? And he doesn't repeat one thing, he repeats two things, Atihara, Prayashas, Prajalpa. Right now we just spoke about Vacho. So why would he? And he says we have to go. So when we look into the second verse, we'll refer Bhakti Aloka commentary of Srila Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura. They discuss different categories of Prajalpa, Sanjalpa, etc., etc. We'll discuss that time. So he says something very interesting about Atihara. He says, what is Ahar? Ahar means Bhojan. There are two things. The word Bhojan starts with Bhoj. So one is Bhoga and one is Bhojana. Bhoga means Bhogna, to enjoy. Similarly, Bhojan, if it is done with an intention to enjoy, that's where the problem comes. So Atihara, he writes about Atihara means to perform any activity with an intention to enjoyment. So it's not only eating. Even if eating is done with intention to enjoyment. Therefore, this prayer, Sharira Avidajal, counteracts that mentality. Sharira Avidyajal Jodindriya Tahekal. As Mother Manisha right in the beginning was making a point, we should accept this as a mercy of the Lord. We should honor it as service to the Lord. That's the point being mentioned over here. Like this. Now there are 6 kind of taste. Where Prabhupada is actually, where this is actually focused, talking about, non-vegetarian diet. Why should not be? TK. Murli Prabhu, you're supposed to read? Go ahead, read now. The 6 kind of rasas.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Yes.
There are 6 kinds of rasas, tastes, and if one is agitated by any one of them, he becomes controlled by the urges of tongue. Some persons are attracted to the eating of meat, fish, crabs, eggs, and other things produced by semen and blood and eaten in the form of dead bodies. Others are attracted by eating vegetables, creepers, spinach, or milk products, but all for the satisfaction of tongue's demands. Such eating for sense gratification, including the use of extra quantities of spices like chili and tamarind, is to be given up by Krishna conscious persons. The use of pan, haritaki, betel nuts, various spices used in pan making, tobacco, LSD, marijuana, opium, liquor, coffee, and tea is indulged into fulfill illicit demands. If we can practice accepting only remnants of food offered to Krishna, it is possible to get free from Maya's victimization. Vegetables, grains, fruits, milk products, and water are proper foods to offer to the Lord, as Lord Krishna himself prescribes. However, if one accepts prasada only because of its palatable taste and thus eats too much, he also falls prey to trying to satisfy the demands of the tongue. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us to avoid very palatable dishes even while eating prasada. If we offer palatable dishes to the deity with the intention of eating such nice food, we are involved in trying to satisfy the demands of the tongue. If we accept the invitation of a rich man with the idea of receiving palatable food, we are also trying to satisfy the demands of the tongue. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya Leela 6.227, it is stated, Jihvara lalase ye iti utidhaya Shishnodara parayana Krishna nahi paya. That person who runs here and there seeking to gratify his palate and who is always attached to the desires of his stomach and genitals is unable to attain Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank
So
you.
when we're talking
Hare
about Jivha, we are making the point of prasadam. Who cooks it? Devotee. Now regarding palatable thing, that time we quoted this point. It should not be too palatable, too rich, otherwise it agitates the mind and senses. All right, continue. Mother Kamalika, you're the next one to read.
Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. That person who runs here and there seeking to gratify his palate and who is always attached to the desires of his stomach and genitals is unable to attain Krishna. As stated before, the tongue, belly and genitals are all situated in a straight line and they fall in the same category. Lord Chaitanya has said, Bhalo na khaibe ar bhalo na poribe. Do not dress luxuriously and do not eat delicious foodstuffs. Chaitanya Charitamrita Antalila 6.236. Those who suffer from diseases of the stomach must be unable to control the urges of the belly, at least according to this analysis. When we desire to eat more than necessary, we automatically create many inconveniences in life. However, if we observe fasting days like Ekadashi and Janmashtami, we can restrain the demands of the belly. As far as the urges of the genitals are concerned, there are two proper and improper, or legal and illicit sex. When a man is properly mature, he can marry according to the rules and regulations of the Shastras and use his genitals for begetting nice children. That is legal and religious. Otherwise, he may adopt many artificial means to satisfy the demands of the genitals, and he may not use any restraint. When one indulges in illicit sex life, as defined by the Shastras, either by thinking, planning, talking about, or actually having sexual intercourse, or by satisfying the genitals by artificial means, he is caught in the clutches of Maya. These instructions apply not only to the householders, but also to Tyagis, or those who are in the renounced order of life. In his book, Prema Vivarta, chapter 7, Sri Jagannath Pandit says, বৈরাগী ভাই গ্রাম্য কথা না শুনিবে কানে গ্রাম্য বার্তা না কহিবে জবে মিলিবে আনে স্বপ্ন
Sounds like authentic Bengali. Somebody knows how to read Bengali. Good, good.
স্বপনে ও না করো ভাই স্ত্রী সম্ভাষণা গৃহে স্ত্রী ছাড়িয়া ভাই আসিয়াছে বনে যদি চাহা প্রাণায়া রাখিতে গৌরাঙ্গের সনে ছোট হরিদাসের কথা থাকে যেন মনে ভালো না খাইবে আর ভালো না পড়িবে হৃদয়েতে রাধা কৃষ্ণ সর্বদা সেবিবে My dear brother, you are in the renounced order of life and should not listen to talk about ordinary worldly things, nor should you talk about worldly things when you meet with others. Do not think of women, even in dreams. You have accepted the renounced order of life with a vow that forbids you to associate with women. If you wish to associate with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you must always remember the incident of Chota Haridas and how he was rejected by the Lord. Do not eat luxurious dishes or dress in fine garments, but always remain humble and serve the Lordships, Sri Sri Radha Krishna, in your heart of hearts. Shall I continue, Prabhu?
The host, our co-host can decide what's going on next one. Okay, Mother Leela, go ahead. Read the next paragraph.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. The conclusion is that one who can control these 6 items, speech, mind, anger, tongue, belly, and genitals, is to be called a Swami or Goswami. Swami means master, and Goswami means master of the ego or senses. When one accepts the renounced order of life, he automatically assumes the title of Swami. This does not mean that he is the master of his family, community, or society. He must be master of his senses. Unless one is master of his senses, he should not be called Goswami but Godasa, servant of the senses.
Following in the footsteps of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavana, all Swamis and Goswamis should fully engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. As opposed to this, the Godasas engage in the service of the senses or in the service of the material world. They have no other engagement. Prahlada Maharaja has further described the Godasa as Adanta Go, which refers to one whose senses are not controlled. And Adanta Go cannot become a servant of Krishna. In Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.30, Prahlada Maharaja has said, Madirna Krishne Bharada Swadova Vidho Vibhadayata Graha Pradhanam Adanta Gobe Vishadam Tavastrim Puna Punaschar Vidat Charvanam. Those who have decided to continue their existence in this material world for the gratification of their senses, there is no chance of becoming Krishna conscious. Not by personal endeavor, by instruction from others, or by joint conference. They are dragged by the unbridled senses into the darkest region of the ignorance, and thus they madly engage in what is called chewing the chewed. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, chewing the chewed. So we complete. Sorry, I was busy preparing some question for all of you. I thought we'll have a quiz right away. So any quick thoughts, reflection on this particular verse? Any clarification? Vacha Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam. Anyone wants to share anything? Yes, Nitai Pranprabhu, anything to clarify?
Yeah, Prabhu, I have a question regarding the speech and the anger.
Yes.
So as we have seen that Prabhupada was very particular about when it's come to the Mayavadi philosophy, where he used his speech in order to debate and basically let the world know that the Mayavadi philosophy is the wrong philosophy. But when it's come to speaking as well, is it appropriate to contemplate on the past? I mean to say that whatever the Mughal emperors has done to us, which is something which we all should be angry about and we should be angry about. So
Okay,
is that
Nitai
something
Pranprabhu,
that?
yeah, can you say that? Just paraphrase what you've just said so far.
Yeah, so I was just trying to understand from the point of view between the speech and the anger. Yeah, so as we have seen that Prabhupada was very particular about, like he uses his speech when it's come to the Mayavadi philosophy. He was debating, he's using his anger and all such sort of thing. But what all has happened in the past when we know that the Mughal emperors, whatever they have done to us. Now, this is also a matter of anger. So if in case we are preaching, is it okay that we can quote whatever had happened in the past in the sense of showing our anger, using our speech to showcase that, yes, this is what something has happened and there's a particular system which has basically tried to overcome our civilization or our philosophy and everything.
All right. Generally, when we talk about history, you talk about Mughal. I don't see them much different than the Islam. Let's call Mughal, all club them in Islamic invaders or the British invaders. I don't see them much different than what Ravana or Hiranyakashipu did. They all are the same party, or Duryodhana for that reason. Demonic mindset. All right, exploit people, exploit women, kids, whatnot. So whenever we discuss that, now because this is a recent history, we have read about it. So it's but natural our emotions, will get emotionally surcharged. However, while speaking about it, of course, I'm not saying it is right or wrong. I'm not defining right and wrong here. But technically, we should always focus on lessons that we can learn. One thing that when I look at the situation, that it always reminds me that, for example, I like forests. Point is, even if I like forest, even if I go to the forest, there won't be even peace in forest also. This is the nature of the material world. If somebody decides to walk away from the society and the city, bustling city, and go to the forest, you cannot be at peace at forest also, because there are wild animals. So the nature of this world is padam padam yata vidam natesham. So as far as my limited understanding of Krishna consciousness philosophy is, if in case you're properly grounded in the philosophy, you're not going to really get angry at somebody for something. Because the point is, what's the point of pinning a blame to somebody when we know philosophically it is either our own karma, or it was because the corrupt Brahminical society at one point in time in the history that led to the downfall of the whole Vedic culture. Or else it is the nature of this world. You can never be happy, whoever you are, in whichever situation you are. So why to become so emotionally surcharged while talking about anyone? Well, if I need to speak about it, then I'll speak about it just for the purpose of knowledge. This is FYI, without getting my emotions involved into it. These are the facts that we like to present to you. This is for you, how you want to use it. A general knowledge. Once upon a time, I used to do this 26th January event, where you would have 3 days of discussion on history of India. And then we'll speak about it. That was again meant for general for knowledge. Like that, why do we get angry and convey our anger through our speech to our audience? We don't need to. So if in case that was your question, I don't know if I really answered your question, but that's how I took it. Clarify that?
Yes, Prabhu, that clarified. Yeah, I was just thinking it from the point of view that what had recently happened when one of the most prominent preacher from Delhi was banned for a month because he spoke about the Mayavadis. Yeah.
Let's not discuss that. It's online right
Yeah.
now.
No, that's true. I just don't want to discuss that. Yeah, but that's from
But
this
one
thought
point,
came.
one point I'll just make it because everyone is aware of the case. One point I would just like to mention this regard. See, you have to be, when Prabhupada met them, Prabhupada was very respectful. In his private audience, Prabhupada spoke. So private conversations are not supposed to become public. So in public dealings, Prabhupada was very cordial, was very kind, was very respectful. So when you are in a public domain, you cannot speak as it was spoken. It was highly inappropriate. And I mean, I cannot share the details, but you don't know how much backfired we had to face. It seriously backfired. It really led to a serious issue. We can't discuss this on the public forum like that. But the point is, if somebody has a public profile, you would be judged. You would be watched. And of course, they're inimical people. And they're just looking at an opportunity to just catch on to you. So anyone on a public profile is a very dangerous position, actually. Then you got to be careful. But the intoxication of this name, fame, as such, we can get easily carried away when we have people clapping for us. I'm not speaking about the devotee. I'm just saying in general, we get carried away when we know that anything I speak, people are gonna clap. So we become very relaxed and carefree. And the moment we become relaxed and carefree in our speech, we may speak on the subject matter, although we have utmost respect, we understand Prabhupada's philosophy, but we may speak in a way in which audience want to hear. That's where the challenge problem lies. If you begin to speak the way audience want to hear, there would always be some audience who would gonna find fault with it. So anyone in a public speaking domain, he understands what my public wants. But that is not Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness, you speak what you have to speak on Krishna conscious terms, not to please the audience. So I know if I say in certain way, if I present the idea in this way, audience is gonna clap. So that's a little risky line. Some are expert, they can adapt, do it, but it's not cup of tea for everyone like that. So like that. Anyways.
Yeah. So you even emphasize on the preaching as well, Prabhu, that we all should be preaching. But what kind of a guidelines that you want to give to, to us?
You have to have. See, I'll tell you a standard thing. I see. I have all categories of programs, from college program to MBA students to corporates to senior managers. I have to do a line for myself. I am going to make it relevant and related to my audience, but I'm not going to speak to them in their language. That's a very risky thing, because once you get into their language, there are always chances of you slipping down. You can casually speak some words which are not appropriate for your ashram. So best is preaching is meant for my purification. Am I getting purified during the process, or am I getting more corrupted? So preaching is meant for my purification. Purification will happen what? Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo. The message should come from Srimad Bhagavatam, not from the WhatsApp University. Not that we pick up jokes from here and there and put it. Everyone can have their take. Something is okay, a little bit, but not too much. So once a preacher becomes too much conscious of what my audience is going to like or dislike, then you really cannot speak about Krishna consciousness. We need to be sensitive of the audience. We need to speak accordingly. Not about it. What is that? 17th chapter, verse number 16. The urges, what is that? Vanmayam tapochyate. Anudvega karam vakyam satyam priyam hitam chayat. Swadhyaya bhasanam chayava vanmayam tapochyate. So we have to speak accordingly. No doubt about it. But at least there should be something which is potent for them. Like that. So we have to take care. In today's time, when everything is recorded, everything goes online, we have to take care about what is sensitive to others. We should not speak about that. If we need to, we speak about it in private forum. We all have our emotions. We all have our own thoughts and feelings about certain subject matter. At least let that not go into public domain, because we don't know who's going to hear to it. And somebody who hears gets offended, what to do? For example, I recently, in the month of Savan, I did last year also, and this year also did. We had a whole 1 month long Glories of Lord Shiva. Somebody heard a session and he passed a comment. Kya title ka naam Glories of Lord Shiva hai? Pura tum blasphemy kar rahe ho Shiva ki. Now, what was the whole topic of Glories of Lord Shiva? It was entirely from Srimad Bhagavatam. But he might be a radical Shivite who just doesn't want to accept there could be another truth. So he said, "Arey, tumne Glories of Lord Shiva title de rakha hai, but you are only speaking blasphemy." ISKCON wale hote hi aise hai. What can you do about it now? But I spoke from Bhagavatam, so there's nothing for me to back down. I'm not speaking from my mind. I'm not speaking here and there. Bhagavatam says you can pick it and read it. You're not complain to Vyasdev. What can I do? So that way. So there are guidelines we can discuss at time later on about it. But there's a few things. Be careful of it. What you speak, and best is as much as we can stick to Prabhupada. What Prabhupada? Prabhupada examples, everything. Prabhupada has given everything perfectly to help us understand. Beautiful analogies. All right. Hare Krishna. Yes, Mother.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you so much for clarifications.
Yes, Mother Chintamani.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, I just wanted to clarify this point because this thing Mahaprabhu told Raghunath Das Goswami, bhalo na khaibe, bhalo na puribe. And on the other hand, when Gadadhar Pandit went to meet Pundarik Vidyanidhi, he was in very fine clothes and very opulent food and all. At that time, it became offense.
Yeah, probably Pundarik Vidyanidhi didn't met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He would have changed his lifestyle also. Well, go ahead, complete your thing.
Yeah, so like now when Gadadhar Pandit looked at him in the same eyes, that he is so opulent and he has such this thing, how can he be a devotee and all, that became an offense. And then later on, Gadadhar Pandit had to take Diksha from Pundarik Vidyanidhi to counteract that offense.
Well, it was his personal choice because his heart was charmed knowing the fact that how absorbed he is in Krishna. When the verse was
he started dancing and all after hearing the
and he went into ecstasy. He began to tore his clothes and everything. Well, see, this is not an ordinary case. This is not your and my story. We are talking about somebody whose absorption level is so high. Just hearing the shloka, just a brief remembrance of the Lord, took him into ecstasy. So for such people, Nectar of Instruction, text number 6 talks about it. You can take a look at it.
Even Prabhuji, in the case of Swayambhu Manu, I had heard a lecture in which it was mentioned that Swayambhu Manu had a very opulent lifestyle. But because he was Krishna conscious,
It
he
is
had
about it is about Priyavrat, not Swambhuva Manu. 5th canto, 1st chapter talks about King Priyavrat. He had a very, very, kind of, and he got too engaged in his household affair and he forgot also about it. Swambhuva Manu ko to maine padha nahi, but ho sakta hai. Okay, but nonetheless, go ahead.
So how do we sort of, bring these different aspects together in the case of, opulent food or whatever it is? Even when we invite somebody, we try to make we don't serve them ordinary food. We serve them delicious food. We serve them,
See, once in a while is
how do we
okay.
compromise? How do we understand the subject?
Right. See, understanding is first thing. Swambhu Manu was son of Brahma. अपना lineage इतना अच्छा नहीं है पहली चीज. All right. He was born at the beginning of the creation. First thing. So his upbringing, his culture was altogether set. About Pundrik Vindyaniti, he was a pure devotee of the Lord. Again, out of our context. Now, in terms of the subject matter, we should at large eat simple prasadam, because today we cannot even eat rich prasadam, because it just, the body cannot adjust that. Body cannot tolerate that. So today is totally valid. Now, once in a while is okay. What's the big deal? Our body needs that. Once in a while is okay. Let's say you're having program at your home, you invite some sadhus or guests and devotees. Once in a while is okay. But it should not be every day. In temple, a temple point was mentioned, if you cook something very delicious for deities, therefore, pujaris are upfront and recommended that you should not eat Rajbhog. You should not. That should be distributed. When you distribute it to random devotees, so they're not also going to eat it every day. I mean, imagine the same pujari eats every day. He won't last in an ashram for more than a month or two. But similarly, we have Janmashtami, we have Balram Jayanti, etc. We have served nice prasadam. So those are days of celebration. Do it that time, but not regularly, not every day, because body cannot take it. And Kali Yuga body, it is meant only for tapasya. Either you voluntarily accept it, or you will be forced to do tapasya. There is no other way, no other way, no other way. That's the state of Kali Yuga body. All right. Anything else on this?
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Madhamita, your hand is up. Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandat Pranam.
Yes.
Prabhuji, actually you were speaking about glories of Lord Shiva. I had asked a question in one of those forums itself.
Oh, that is out of context and syllabus. Let's focus on NOI.
Okay, fine.
Yeah,
So
this is
regarding
Bhakti Shastri syllabus will
sure.
get off the window. Yes.
Okay, Prabhu. So regarding NOI, I had this query.
Regarding
that,
glories of Lord Shiva, na, I'll give you the contact number of that fellow who put a comment.
No, I want to know. I have a different question, Prabhu. That is not my question.
And you
So I
can
have a
also
different
then
question.
tell in the glories of Bhagavatam. क्या हम शिव जी के बारे में क्या क्या कह रहे हैं.
Prabhu,
ठीक है, मदर, go ahead.
Yeah. The query about NOI is Vacho Vegam and Jiva Vegam, right? First on Vacho Vegam, you said when we are preaching, we have to make it relevant to the audience, right? So from the context of
I am not saying as a general principle for all. I said this is how I try to do it. Make it relevant. Somebody can just try to speak Shastra, speak Shastra, fine.
Okay. Yeah, that's one. So for our own purification, we can speak according to what is our realization from what we've heard or studied. That's perfectly okay, right? Because generally, I always find that the audience is not, because we don't go to colleges or, so audience is like mixed crowd,
That's okay.
It's like,
That's okay. Again, my subject matter here was not more on preaching. My point was Vacho Vegam. I gave the concept in the beginning to help you understand the purpose, because there are two things going on. Prabhupada's commentary and Anuvritti. So just want to highlight the simple point is, how do you control the gross? Through preaching. How do you control the gross? Is through prasadam. And how do you control the subtle? Through preaching. So Vacha, Manasa, Krodha gets controlled by preaching. Jiva, Dara, Pasha gets controlled by and controlled and purified by prasad. That's it. These are the two things which are highlighted in the purport. Because there are so many things mentioned, you might miss out. So if we can have prasadam and preaching, we stick to it, prasadam, only prasadam, and should have some engagement, maybe once in a week, where we speak about it. Online, everyone is online now. Everyone can start some forum online. There are so many people who want to do something. And why we need to have 100 people? 5 people also more than enough. Read. That's it. That was the subject matter that we discussed.
Okay, so my question was more on the relevance, which I think is not on the subject. And secondly, Prabhu, on the Jiva Vegam, how you mentioned. So this is, I don't know if it is a problem that is unique to me, but I just wanted to clarify this aspect. So Prabhu, I'm a South Indian and I cannot be without having curd even for a single day. And already the curd fasting has started. So I'm able to do the curd fasting because His Holiness Jayapatak Maharaj at least stresses on following the Chaturmasya and the Bhishma Panchaka. But on Balaram Purnima, I just got a message from one of the devotees saying, Malpua is one of the favorite, and I made Malpua, and everyone had one. I had about 7 or 8 of Malpua. I mean, it was. So and actually I'm having thyroid issues, overweight issues. I'm able to follow this sanction and sanctified. I'm not able to regulate my Krishna Prasadam, Prabhu. I'm able to follow the rules wherever the acharyas have, or my Guru Maharaj has specifically said. And I always tell myself, ISKCON bullets, the more Krishna Prasadam, more Krishna conscious. Somehow, like you say, the mind actually tells you what you want to hear, like that. And
When
also
it is beyond us, then we should fall at the feet of Balaramji. Bala. The strength comes from the original Bala, Balaramji. So we know the philosophy, and we think we need to follow this particular. You're not doing anything wrong, but it's not good for your health as what you're suggesting to. Then the only one who can help is we need a special strength, and that comes from prayers. Krishna conscious philosophy. You're not doing anything wrong, but you feel like I could regulate. So simple answer is prayers. Balaram Jayanti, Balaram, we can pray to the Lord, we can pray to Balaramji. That is a way of doing it. All right, prayers are powerful. Fine. Hare Krishna. So, what do we do? Should we look at verse 2, or should we pause it and that's it for today? Next week. Oh, wait a second. I've got a quiz for all of you. And don't look at that quiz. How do I launch the quiz? One second. Pause on quizzes. So, launch. Hare Krishna. All of you, those who are on the chat, you will see the quizzes here. Your time starts now. सिर्फ 2 मिनट का समय है, हाँ? और आपके समक्ष 5 प्रश्न हैं. Chat window पे कुछ मत करिएगा. Start answering. Are you able to see the quiz? Okay. So start answering. Your time is 2 minutes. 30 seconds already over.
Prabhu, I think we are admins. Sorry, so we can't select the answers.
Oh, really? You're the
Yeah.
fortunate jivas. No problem. What can I do now? I didn't know what it. For the first time I created. You can see that, okay, but you can't. Okay, no problem. Next time. I just created for the first time here, so I have no idea myself. All right, 60 seconds more to go. Okay, the admins don't have to solve. So at least you can solve and keep an answers with you. When we take a look at answers, then you can look at that way. All right? You don't have to mark. That's okay. 40 seconds more to go. अरे आप लोग आंसर कर रहे हो नहीं कर रहे हो? Are you all able to see the questions, right? I hardly see people, only very handful of people have replied answers to it. Go ahead. And those who are gonna watch it on YouTube later on, I'm posting this in the comments. Somebody needs to mute themselves. Who is unmuted here? All right. And I can't put a quiz question on this chat. All right, devotees, time is up. It's 3 minutes, 10 seconds. I'm about to close it. The final 10 seconds, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Based on your, how many of you have attempted, we'll mark your attendance now. तो पता चलेगा कौन-कौन class में था. So we'll change the attendance methodology now. Those who all attend the quiz at the end of the session will be marked present, regardless of you pass or fail.
Prabhu, I'm not able to submit. That button is not working.
अब ये तो आप Zoom वालों को बताइए क्या नहीं चल रहा आपका. I am not a technical guy.
Questions are compulsory. That's why.
Huh?
The submit button is active now.
All questions are compulsory. That's why.
Yeah, all questions are compulsory, Mataji. You have skipped some question. आपने जो पांचों क्वेश्चन है, the talking of dash and dash, वहां पे मुझे नहीं पता कैसे आंसर देना. आपको कुछ लिखना होगा, क्लिक करना होगा उस पे तो आंसर होगा. Okay, quick team. Only 70% of you have answered. What 30% are doing? So those of you answer, you get attendance, huh? If you don't answer, your attendance is gone. So I'm closing it now. It's almost 4 minutes now. Last 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Concluding. So share this.
We submitted.
So all right. So these are the results. Probably you can see it. Real atonement means what? Performing pious activities, stopping all impious activity. So awakening of a dormant Krishna, all of the above. So really, so actually real atonement means awakening our dormant Krishna consciousness. When you do that, that is all of the above. Okay, second question, bodily demands. You all are able to see the answers now, right? Yeah. So bodily demands begin with what? 4 options. Body demand begins with jivha, tongue. All right. Eyes and ears. ये सब वही होंगे जो बड़े प्रेम से आंखें और कान बंद करके सो रहे होंगे क्लास में, जो शायद क्विज के समय उठे होंगे. या आईज और ईयर्स का तो वर्णन ही नहीं है श्लोक में. No. All right. Text number the question number 3, sorry. One can become qualified to be bona fide spiritual master when one who is fully practiced in the methods of Krishna conscious control. Very good. Okay. Question number 4. It is possible to get free from Maya's victimization if we always stay in the temple, strictly follow the morning program, practice accepting only remnants of food offered to Krishna. So it is possible to get free from Maya's victimization if we, yes, Krishna prasadam. That was the importance of it. The 5th question, the talking of dash dash. How do I see the details here? Fill in the blank. I did it for the first time. I'm really not sure how this fill in the blank works. Mera Zoom kahan gaya? So आप लोगों ने अलग अलग आंसर दिए हैं, but if you look into the chat box के अंदर options given थे. Chat box कहाँ है आपका? So chat box में था. It is possible to get sorry, हाँ, the talking of materialistic men or philosophers and impersonalistic. The materialistic man and impersonalistic. What do you think? Second question answer. The fill in the blank answer is A or B? Sense enjoyers and nonsense scholars. Materialistic man and impersonalistic Mayavadi philosophers. Materialistic philosophers and sense enjoyers. Materialistic philosophers and sense enjoyers. Okay, this is a little tricky. Fine. All right. So I guess we'll pause here. Thank you for attempting the quiz. it's almost 2 o'clock. We'll catch up with the second verse next time. Second verse is going to take a little more time if in case we go through Bhakti Loka, but that has some very, very important discussions. So we'll see that. So first thing we talked about 6 things which should be controlled. Now the second was talk about the 6 faults that should be given up. All right. So with that, we pause here for today. Wish you all very, very happy Janmashtami celebrations. Also, Śrīla Prabhupada Parents Day. I hope all of you are going to take your day off. There are 2 days in a year when we should take our day off for our eternal family. We all take day off for our family members, friends, whatnot. But the 2 days in a year, we take off for our eternal family. One day is Krishna Janmashtami. Second, for our father, Śrīla Prabhupada. So in India, we have 7th and 8th. So in our community, we make it compulsory. Chutti. कोई कहीं नहीं जाएगा, सब सेवा पे जाएंगे। भाई हर कोई लेता है ना परिवारजनों के लिए छुट्टी, तो हमारे जो नित्य परिवारजन है उनके लिए भी तो छुट्टी लेकर सेवा करनी चाहिए। So wish you all the best for that. May you have a wonderful and grand celebrations, and we'll catch up probably on the 15th and 16th weekend whenever is the next class. Okay, Jagadguru Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. So those of you have marked the